Last time we talked about power of individuals in the US voting system, the power of the president and individual congressmen. But politicians rarely work independently, so let's look at how working together changes power dynamics. A coalition is any agreement where individuals form a group and they must vote the same within this group. This sounds like you're handing away your power, but is that really the case? Again, we can start with a simple example. Our small country has gotten slightly bigger and now needs 7 members of parliament. Alf, Bev, Kathy, Dave, Evie, Fee and Gab. When Kathy votes fourth, she is the deciding vote. This is because before she votes, there is a minority, and after she votes, it is a majority. Given all of the possible sequences, Kathy is the fourth vote 1/7 of the time, so she holds 1/7 of the power. Now this makes sense, as there are 7 members and they share the power equally. As a quick side note, if this is confusing, click here to watch a more detailed explanation. But what happens when Alf, Bev and Kathy form a coalition? If we just look at Kathy, we can see how her power changes. Before she formed a coalition, in any sequence there is just one winning position, fourth. However, when she is part of the coalition, we consider them as one person worth 3 votes. If the coalition votes second, there's just 1 vote before them, not a majority, and the addition of the 3 votes makes a majority. So they are the deciding vote at position 2, but they are also the deciding vote when they vote third or fourth. The coalition is now the winning vote 72 times out of 120 possible sequences. That's 3/5. So this is kind of obvious. A group is more powerful than an individual, but does Kathy increase her individual power? Well, this depends on how the coalition decides their vote. If the coalition is a basic democracy, and a simple majority decides how the whole group will vote, then Kathy has 1/3 of the power within that coalition. Put these numbers together and her individual power is now 1/5. Kathy has actually increased her individual power by joining a coalition. So let's look at this in a real example. Australia has a 2-house system, the House of Representatives and the Senate. To pass legislation, both houses must have a majority vote yes. And one of the characteristics of the Australian Parliament is very strong coalitions. Members of a party are effectively forced to vote in the same way. The result from the 2016 election just came in, and they were very tight. The Liberal National Coalition won 42% of the vote in the House, ousting Labor and Greens who got 34% and 10% each. This gave the coalition a 1-seat majority in the House. The Senate vote was lower, and the Senate ended up being the most diverse it's ever been. Because the House is so close, this is a perfect example of how power can shift drastically with tiny changes in the coalition. With the current makeup of the Parliament, power looks like this. The coalition has 69% of the power, Labor and Greens have 12.5% each, Xenophon and One Nation have 2% each, and the remaining 4 independents in the Senate have 0.5% each. Because the coalition has a majority in the House of Reps, the independents in that house do not hold any power. This also explains why Labor has the same amount of power as the Greens, despite 10 times more MPs, as only their senators have any power. As you can see, the party that holds the majority in the House holds a lot of power, and the coalition should be very happy with that situation. 42% of the vote translated to 69% of the power. But it's a precarious situation, and one of the things about coalitions is that it's hard to predict how large an impact a small change can have. If one MP defects from the coalition to become an independent, even though the coalition loses their majority in the House of Representatives, there is no path for Labor to win without the coalition's support. So one defection actually leads to no change in power. However, if another coalition member defects to become an independent, which is not unprecedented, their power drops by 13%. That lost power is soaked up by the other members in the House of Representatives. In Australia, the 2 large parties spend a lot of time warning against a minority in the House of Representatives. It is not a lack of stability that they're afraid of, but a loss of power for their party. If they don't win the election, their power will be low no matter what. Notice that Labor's power stays under 15% despite the coalition's losses. But if they do win the election, the spoils are great for a party in the majority. The power of coalitions is complex, and this complexity comes from the fact that each system is different and small changes in composition can have large impacts. It's useful to understand these dynamics as they often drive how political parties behave.